Hello and welcome to the show. Now you may well be of the school of thought wondering why on earth a Cadillac limo would be in Forza 6, and certainly on the face of things it does sound like an odd addition to a racing game, as these things are never really designed to go racing. The thing is, often the odd additions make for the most fun racing. Forza 4, the city car racing we did, was a huge amount of fun. The Daihatsu midget racing on Gran Turismo was absolutely incredible. Even the Gurkha racing on Forza 6, that was a hell of a lot of fun. Worked really, really rather well. And limo racing, well, that's just better than all of them. Limo racing is by far the greatest form of motorsport we have ever done. It's just absolutely incredible. Admittedly, it is a rather strange sight, coming down towards Turn 1. For our first race, we went to the Hockenheim short circuit. Why? Because, well, this track often produces fantastic racing. We've seen it time and time again, plenty of overtaking opportunities, so I figured this would be a good place to test the limos out. Come up towards Turn 2, this is probably the first time some of these guys have driven these cars, and we're 3 wide already, through Turn 2. 3 wide on the second corner. You don't normally get, general cars, race cars, going 3 wide through there. But with limos, sure, we'll fit 3 limos through there. Again, we're almost solidly 2 wide down the back straight. If you weren't 2 wide with somebody, there was about a millimetre between you and the car ahead or the car behind. Just everybody was in a train or trying to overtake somebody. Now as we come towards, this is a really fast corner, this one. It's a nasty, nasty corner to try and get right. It's just a solid limo train. And then further back, we have cars trying to overtake one another. There's a yellow limo, sorry, going around the outside of some cars at the hairpin. A few people outbrake themselves a little bit. The car we're following tried to get up the inside of 2 cars. We're again going 3 wide down towards the second to last corner. Someone may have slightly misjudged the length of the limo, so car gets tipped sideways and 2 more cars very quickly approaching, and now we're 5 wide on the second to last corner, and everybody decides it's a better idea to go and play on the drag strip to avoid a big crash. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a laggy bump that would see 2 cars deposited into the tyre wall on the exit of that final corner. They got going again and could rejoin the race. Again, 3 wide down towards Turn 1. The pink limo was a little bit slow off the final corner and got swamped towards the through there. The cars ahead of him were fighting, that slowed him down. Now the vehicle that we're following is coming to join in the fun and have a dive up towards Turn 2. The cars ahead are 2 wide, the cars we're following are 2 wide, behind them they're 2 wide, in front of them it was probably 2 wide, going through that corner. It was just constant. Everywhere you looked, somebody was trying to do an overtake on somebody. Still, down the back straight, it's the limo line, and then 2 wide, and they're still fighting further back, and they're still fighting for it. It was really hard to find the highlights in this because it didn't matter where I pointed the camera, who I was following. Somebody was overtaking someone. Then we decided to go 3 wide. This is a corner that 2 wide is not a good idea. We're going 3 wide in limos, and amazingly, everybody made it through okay. Aside from the laggy replay, I apologise for that one there. That didn't happen. The cars didn't actually phase through one another. That's just a dodgy replay on that bit. And now we're at the hairpin, and again, we're still squabbling all over these positions. This is the first 2 laps, and pretty much everywhere is either a solid line or overtaking. There was so much passing going on in these first couple of laps. I mean, the car we're following got a little bit of a twitch on coming out of that second to last corner and ended up slightly on the drag strip, but you could get away a little bit with that. I was trying to make my way through the field. One thing that we did see is you cannot afford to make a mistake. Mistakes are incredibly costly. So one of the black limos up ahead ran wide out of the final corner, and because everybody is so close together, you do that, he loses 2 places. Just by dipping 1 wheel on the dirt or the sand trap, he's lost 2 places in that, and now he's under serious threat from another limo behind. Yeah, you couldn't afford to make mistakes with these cars because we're running all completely identical cars. These are all completely stock. If you were a little bit slow off a corner and a train of cars behind you, yeah, you were going to get into an awful lot of trouble. And again, we're back to fighting down this back straight. You can see the group behind this are going 2 wide. The white limo here is still having, and this is still the black limo having been compromised off that final turn. He's been dropped into this group. Now the yellow limo is up the inside outside of the pair of them. A double overtake in that corner. Guess where we're going to go 3 wide again? This is twice in 3 laps we've had cars going 3 wide. The black limo eventually has to yield on that one. He just doesn't have the grip to keep it around the outside. The white car that was in the middle through that section is, of course, going to be on the inside for the hairpin, so he can just about fend off the position. The part of the reason why this racing was so good, though, is because the cars are long, you expect them to be kind of ungainly, difficult to drive and so on, but actually that made the racing better because it was very, very hard to ever kind of fully close the door on somebody, because when you were racing like this, you had to leave a much larger gap because, you know, the cars are huge, so trying to get back across to the inside to defend your position was very, very difficult, which meant that, yeah, you just sort of had just constant overtaking and then re-overtaking around the course of the lap. I mean, this was a little bit further back through the field. Again, we see a couple of cars running a little bit wide out of the final turn. That was quite a common place to get yourself into to a little bit of trouble. Up towards turn 1, we're again going too wide through the first corner. The car on the outside does super well to keep that there. It's really tough going around the outside of the first corner. So yeah, to keep your speed up and can keep enough momentum there to maintain the position. It did really, really well. But that still had him on the outside for turn 2, and he just eventually runs out of grip. And then when you get stuck on the outside, you get bumped out, perhaps just a tiny little bit wide. You're immediately coming under pressure from another car. So despite his efforts through that first corner, he's now suddenly under attack from the car behind who was looking around. It's just constant limo train is going on. I think for most of this, or pretty much all of this race, you had somebody within 100 feet of you. Just the entire field had somebody within, except for the leader who buggered off. But everyone else had someone really rather close. I think this was over about 15th and 16th. Still going too wide. Still too wide through that horrible, horrible corner. Yeah, didn't matter what position you were in. There was still an awful lot of squabbling. The white limo here just outbraked himself a little bit into the hairpin, and of course the car stuck on the outside has nowhere to go, so the Monster Energy car is up alongside. Now again, we're coming up towards that second to last corner. I love the second to last corner as an overtaking opportunity, but going around the outside here is very, very tough to do in completely identical cars, and in the end, the monster car just runs out of grip. It's super difficult to make that one work, and you see how just that fight, those few corners, had allowed the car behind them to close the gap up massively. I was still trying to get 4th place. This is really the story of my race. I managed to work my way up into 5th, and I could not find a way past the car in front. I'd compromised myself into the hairpin. That actually put me into a lot of trouble with the white limo. I had to dive up the inside, went a little bit too much across the grass, across the dirt, slowed himself down. He was now coming under fire from the yellow limo behind, and we were all, again, just squabbling constantly. 2nd and 3rd were just that little bit further up the road. They just got a little bit of a gap between them. They weren't quite fighting as hard as we were over this 4th place, trying to get that good run through the first corner. I was trying to get a good dive into the second turn. Is a decent place to try and get a pass. I had a go. I don't think the white limo quite realised where I was. I had to take to the grass to avoid having a crash. I didn't really want to gain a position that way, but suddenly I'm coming under fire from everything, and now we're again back to being solidly almost too wide down the back straight. I sort of go back into line behind the like it's just a constant trade down this back straight, and now I'm under threat from the cars behind. I have a big dive into this next turn. I saw a gap. I saw that the white car was just left a space and I could be good under brakes. I had a dive up the inside. Now it's a block of car. It's just a solid block of car going through this fast corner. I don't know how on earth we fitted the cars through there. Like, there was millimeters between all 4 of us in that, and we kept the cars under control. I got stuck out a little bit wide on the hairpin. I was fearful of losing a position here to the white limo. And yeah, if you get stuck on that outside line, it's not ideal through the hairpin, but because the cars were so long, he couldn't get back across in time. He couldn't get across to block the inside into the second to last turn, so I will take that position back with a dive up the inside. He's now stuck on the outside. The yellow car is coming back at him. I mean, all the meantime, you can see the size of the gap 2nd and 3rd have got in that lap. That lap, while we were fighting, they pulled a huge amount, and still the yellow car is looking for a way past. I mean, the pack behind us, once they stopped fighting each other, you could catch up to a squabbling pair, or in our case, a quadruple, really quite quickly, because the fighting was just ridiculous. Again, we're looking further down the field. Wherever you looked, there was groups of cars having racing, having lots and lots of sort of overtaking and defending, because it was very, very difficult to get a pass done. You could defend relatively well, and the other reason why this racing worked so well is because the cars were kept completely stock. They were incredibly easy to drive. Yeah, we weren't expecting these to be as easy as they were to drive around here. You know, they're 300 horsepower front-wheel drive cars that are absolutely huge. I think they weigh about 5,500 pounds, which is lighter than I was expecting from them, and they drive really well. These are incredibly easy cars to drive as quickly as we were, and that meant that you know, everybody could keep control of them without any problems, and you could be side by side through the course of the entire lap. These two have basically spent the entire, well, so far the entire lap side by side. Again, we're going too wide through that ridiculous corner. If we do a versus community race at the Hockenheim short circuit, we may see one, possibly two overtakes around the outside there, or cars going too wide and making it through too wide there. And that's a possibly, and that tends to be with, you know, the better handling cars. This one, almost every lap, if I had a camera just stationed on that corner, every single lap we would have seen at least one pair of cars going through there side by side. It was absolutely ridiculous. At the front, the leader pulled a massive gap. I said most of the field had a car within 100 or so feet of each other, the exception being the leader, who buggered off. Got to the front early on, and because he didn't have to worry about the rest of, you know, all of the overtaking and the fighting for position, he just drove away. Actual lap time wise, may run a little bit wide out the final corner. Actual lap time wise, a few of us were setting very, very similar lap times, but the leader was so far gone and didn't have to worry about any fighting. Essentially, he could run in clean air and pull a huge margin over the rest of us. But it was perhaps a little slightly less exciting race for him, in all honesty, because further back, as we came towards this final lap, I was still determined to try and find a way past. I could not get myself up into fourth place. I had tried absolutely everything, and as we came onto the final lap here, I knew it was my last opportunity to try anything. I got a really good run out of the final turn, and the white car was just that little bit slow. He felt the need to go defensive into turn one. Now, when you do that, you take a much shallower line through the corner. It blocks me from having a passing attempt, but it tends to make you a little bit slower off the corner. I got a very good run through turn one. I could get the overlap. I could get the nose of my car up the inside, which meant he couldn't turn in. So I could pretty much, there was a slight bump, but there often is when doing an overtake with these cars. I could get my car alongside, outbrake him, and get the pass done. And as I said before, in me doing that, that compromised the white car ever so slightly. That allowed the yellow limo to come up alongside, but he is forced to go the long way around the outside of this next corner. And then again, we're talking millimeters away through some of these corners between the pair of them. And again, round the outside through this next corner. Every lap someone was trying that maneuver. It was incredible how many attempts were made, and if you can keep it around the outside, it puts you on the inside for the hairpin, which is where you want to be. But again, we see the yellow car cannot quite get far enough ahead. The vehicle we're following has just got the overlap on him, which means as we come up towards the second to last corner and a final corner, he's on the inside. I've managed to just pull that little safety margin while they're fighting. They've now got serious trouble from the vehicle behind as they go round the final corner. Still, the yellow car is stuck on the outside. They lean on one another, end up out wide, and the white car from nowhere at the start of the lap is going to take the pair of them to get fifth place on the final corner. They just pushed it too much around that final corner, fighting amongst themselves, and they gave away the place. It's an incredible final lap for them guys. And again, this was further back. I think it was outside the top 10. On the final lap, these guys were fighting over their positions. Again, we're talking too wide through this particular corner, almost making it 3 wide again through this turn. The car on the outside backs out of it. He's not going to try and make it around that. It's very easy to dip a wheel on the sand on the outside there and completely ruin your race. Down towards the hairpin, the monster car is trying to get the cutback, but just can't get his car turned in time. There's just too much limo in the way on the inside down there, and it is 3 cars fighting for pretty much the same piece of tarmac. Monster car is using all of the track and a little bit more through there, trying to get to the inside at the second to last corner. He can't do it. He's now under fire from the vehicle behind, who's trying to get his nose alongside. All you had to do was get the nose just enough up the inside to be there, and the car was going to have to leave you space, but he couldn't quite do it, and they would cross the line in yet another limo train. It was ridiculous. absolutely ridiculous first race. Now, Hockenheim Short, though, as I said before, often produces amazing racing. It has in pretty much everything we've ever run. Long Beach, on the other hand, tends not to. Long Beach tends to be a bit of a pain in the arse to race around. So we thought we'd take the limos here. You know, cars that are ridiculously long on probably one of the tightest street circuits that we have available. Yeah, I wasn't sure how this was going to fare. Turn 1, we're 3 wide. Yet again, we're 3 wide into the first corner. Admittedly, I think the car on the outside may have ended up bumping into the tyre bundle. He just got kind of forced out 2 wide. Wasn't quite the space. Now, there was a little bit of chaos on the opening lap. A couple of cars actually got themselves a bit stuck on the roundabout, trying to take too tighter a line. And there was a couple of spinners further back that kind of the field bumbled their way past. The leaders made a pretty good start. They managed to make it a bit of a clean break. This was us trying to fit 4 cars into the same piece of tarmac that was never really going to work. But everybody was sensible enough that, you know, when we started having a limo being tipped sideways, we decided it was probably better to let off. And we were kind of to fit 3 limos wide. We had to be a little bit creative with our track limits, and that was fine when you were trying to fit so many limos into the same place. I got the best drive over the lot of them, but the black and grey limo had a huge dive up the inside. We're still 3 wide. We're pretty much 3 wide through two corners. This is at Long Beach. You don't go 3 wide at Long Beach very often in race cars. In limos, we were doing it already on the first lap. I was being careful. I knew there was a car on the outside, so I tried to give him enough space. I didn't put him straight into the tyre bundles, and that made me a little bit slow off the corner. He did really well to keep his car around the outside. And again, we saw this. If I was a little bit slow off the corner, suddenly I'm under an awful lot of pressure from all of the vehicles around. I've got one car going to the outside. Behind me, it's 2 wide. A car's kind of sniffing around the inside. You could hold it around the outside there. You'd be on the inside through the next corner. But again, you could never quite get far enough to completely close off that overlap, which meant I was up the inside into the final corner. There was a spinner towards the front of the field at the final turn. He got turned around, did a really good job of getting his car out of the way so that the rest of us could get through. Yeah, it did compromise a few of us a little bit, but no real harm done. On the most part, I was a bit slow off the corner, but you see the vehicles behind again, much like we saw at Hockenheim. We were 2 and 3 wide in places that you really shouldn't be. 2 or 3 wide. This was further up towards the front. Yeah, I mean, we'd been 2 wide through the final hair. We thought the hairpin was going to be real tough just getting these cars around, and we'd already been going 2 wide on the first lap. So, you know, why not let's go 2 wide through the roundabout? This is another incredibly narrow section. The yellow car gets to the inside on the extra turn 1, but he's stuck. He's stuck on the outside through the roundabout, and yeah, there's just about enough space. He gets a really good run off the turn, which is always useful. It's that really good drive to get the place done, but you're just stuck around the outside through the through the roundabout. So really well done to keep that position. And again, it relied on everybody having, you know, enough respect to leave space to a car if they were alongside, to give them some racing room. And you know, this car here out drags the limo. I think he may have locked his brakes up the car on the inside ever so slightly. The car looked like it was tipping sideways a little bit into the corner. And again, just constant overtaking. Much like we saw in race 1, the car in first that got to the lead very early on buggered off completely because this was what was happening everywhere else. Yeah, the yellow limo ran a little bit too deep into the next corner trying to defend, and that just slowed him down a tad, and now he's immediately under pressure from a car again. Car's trying to get up the inside, and it's a solid line of limos, and plenty of them were trying to fit 2 cars in the same piece of road. The black limo on the inside, he outbraked himself into the corner, overshot it. The yellow limo can do the cutback, and finally he's managed to get enough of an overlap. You know, there's none of the overlap for the vehicles behind, so we could move into place and defend. The hairpin, yeah, we expected the hairpin to be a pain in the arse. That was a corner that we thought would be really problematic. It actually turned out to be not that bad, but again, you had to get a good run off the corner. If you messed up the hairpin, you were going to put yourself in trouble. I was breezed along alongside this white car just by getting a better drive out of a better line, a neater line through the hairpin, and not fighting with somebody on the way in. The black and silver car, another limo got a little bit of a tussle coming down towards turn 1. That put me up the inside, and now we're going to go 3 wide into turn 1 again. There's a ridiculously narrow part of the track to be going 3 wide. Car on the inside wisely backs out of that one when he's realising it's just not going to fit, and now we're 2 wide around the roundabout, and I'm still alongside. Again, the length of the cars meant I could still still just about keep that that overlap. Unfortunately, I didn't have the speed. I didn't have a good run off the roundabout particularly. Didn't bother me too much though. I decided to sort of slot into line and follow the black and silver car. He got up the inside of somebody, and you know, being up the inside of somebody, you tend to push them a little bit wide. They have to take a slightly wonky line. I just thought I'll follow him through, make up the position that way. And again, it's just solid too wide with the cars behind us. We'd managed to break free of this little group. There's so many cars in close proximity. We don't see that at Long Beach. Even, you know, versus the community with sensible vehicles, you just don't see that at Long Beach. And we're racing completely unsuitable vehicles. Cars never designed for racing. You know, an incredibly narrow, demanding circuit. And we're getting by far the best racing that we've ever had. Again, coming down this back straight, it's too wide up ahead, and when it isn't too wide, everybody's just sort of bumper to bumper. The car we're following managed to outbrake. That was perhaps one of the best corners to get a solid overtake done. You could get a decent outbraking manoeuvre through that section, and while that was going on up ahead, I was busy fighting, and now we tried to go 3 wide into the hairpin. Now, 2 wide into the hairpin didn't really work very well. There was a slight, I think it was a lagged out car, so ignore one of the bumps on the outside. Yeah, 2 wide in the hairpin shouldn't really work with limos. 3 wide definitely shouldn't. Amazingly, we did get through it. Unfortunately for me, my TV had a dodgy moment on the way out of that corner, which is why you saw me suddenly go towards the wall. Otherwise, we would have made it cleanly 3 wide. I say cleanly 3 wide. There was the occasional scraping of the cars on the inside wall. That happened a fair little bit through there. But, you know, when we've got this much metal trying to get through the corner, that's perhaps unsurprising. And we're going 3 wide into turn 1 again. I was caught up in the middle of this one. In the end, the car on the outside, it just couldn't carry the speed around there, ran out of grip, and I think he slightly bumped the tyre bundle through there. I managed to keep it through the middle of that lot and yeah, maintain my position. Again, instantly was back in the fight. There was a car ahead of me trying to overtake. Similar story we had here as we did at Hockenheim. Further down the field, there was still plenty of close racing. It didn't matter if you were fighting over 5th or whether it was over 15th. You know, there was still fighting incredibly hard for position. Yeah, we're going 3 wide in another corner. You don't normally go 3 wide through that particular. I was amazed they got through there without serious problem. The car we're following actually got a little bit caught up tight to the wall. I think it may have even scraped the wall ever so slightly. He's now stuck on the outside for the hairpin as one of the cars tries to make it around. But the 2 of them that were squabbling for position there were both slow off the turn. That wide line into the corner gave this vehicle a fantastic run off the turn. Now we're back to going 3 wide, across the start finish line, and around this sort of, I don't know if you call it turn 1 or kind of just a kink in the straight down here. Certainly easily flat out in these cars. Yeah, just getting that good run off of the final turn. He moves across to the inside to make sure to defend his position. The 2 black limos are still fighting side by side. One has a big dive up the inside but can't quite make the manoeuvre stick at this point in time. He will be alongside coming into the roundabout, but then you're stuck on the outside, and he takes a slightly wider line. He's a little bit slow off the corner. He loses the position as well to the other black limo, and finally the white car can kind of get rid of them a little bit. Yeah, the racing was just insane in this one. Again, much like we saw at Hockenheim, the leader buggered off in here, got to the lead in the first couple of corners and just drove away from the rest of the field. A similar story. I think I might have even got fastest lap in this one when I was running in clean air briefly. You know, in clean air you could drive so much quicker when you're not having to worry about car constantly being overtaken and constantly trying to find a way to overtake one. But yeah, I mean, he drove a pretty much flawless race, made no mistakes, but perhaps slightly more boring than the races further back, because again, it was as we came onto the final lap that this was the race for, I think, 3rd place. It was just incredible. So we make it 3 wide on the exit of the hairpin. I have the best run of the lot out of here. I end up giving the pink limo a bit of a bump draft to just try and get past one of the cars, and I've got, you know, really good speed coming down here. I'm sat right in the slipstream behind this car. I see my opportunity to have a go into turn 1. I knew I was pretty good under brakes into this first corner, so I had a big dive up the inside. But the thing is, when you're, you know, with equal cars like this, trying to have a big dive, there is so much car to dive past that it was very, very difficult to simply, you know, outbrake somebody, which means that I'm now stuck on the outside through the roundabout, but I do get a better run off the turn. When you saw, we had a little bit of a gap back to the black and silver car, immediately gone. The second we start driving like this, the gaps are immediately gone. And I'm on the outside for about the third corner now. I don't know how I stayed out of that tyre bundle either. I thought that was going to end in disaster, but I made it work. The black limo is now looking all over the back of us, trying to find a way past. I finally got myself to the inside of a corner. This is where you want to be to try and get the overtake done. But as I'd been doing to the pink limo for the previous corners, he maintains it around the outside through then, and that'll put you on the inside for this next turn. I did not really fancy going around the outside through here, but I was going to have to try and give it a go. I did okay at keeping it alongside. I got a decent run off the turn, but it's the black limo that was quicker than all of us, and he's now up the inside, and with 3 wide, down this straight again. It was ridiculous. The amount of times you were going 3 wide with cars at Long Beach was insane. I'm now really well and truly in trouble, stuck on the outside. I don't want to go around there. I'm going to end up in the tyre bundle, not going to be particularly quick. So I slot back into line, realising that I've lost both of these positions. My best chance was to have a go at the final corner. And, well, there was only one place I was going to be able to go, and that was up the inside of the pink car. I pretty much bumped the black limo to get past the pink car. And you saw in that space of that lap, we had a pretty big gap back to the cars behind. That gap was completely gone. I got a really good run out of the hairpin. I was actually catching the black limo, just ran out of straight really to do anything about it. I would beat the pink car. You see the gap just completely vanished in that final lap. Yeah, a pretty damn ridiculous final lap for us at Long Beach. The limos are just the most glorious racing vehicles. They are so much fun to go racing with because of the size of them, because of the difficulty to overtake and get overtakes completed. You can get alongside, you can spend a huge amount of time side by side and never quite get an overtake completed. It meant that there was so much going on in these races, and the cars were incredibly easy to drive. I wouldn't want tell a lie. One thing I would change, I'd perhaps have a slightly different gearbox in them because the gear ratios were very, very long. Aside from that, I wouldn't want to change anything about these cars to go racing because they were so incredibly easy to drive. They really handled very, very well for what they were. Yeah, they're front-wheel drive. I didn't get any real understeer from them. Okay, if you push them really hard through a fast corner, a little tiny bit. But for my driving style, they were absolutely fine. They were pretty good under brakes. For what they are, they were pretty damn good at getting stopped. Yeah, limo racing is just amazing fun. If you haven't tried it, go. If this video hasn't convinced you to try it, I don't think anything ever will. It's just an incredible form of motorsport that should most definitely be a thing. But there we go. That is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.